Have you ever wondered what's really going on behind your motivation or your lack of it? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden psychology that explains why some things are so addictive, yet, so unproductive. And we'll also look at how the world's absolute best performers build skills that actually last. We're going to dive into the science of dopamine, from its sneaky traps to the path of real, true mastery.
You know that feeling, right? You're playing a game and that progress bar just stops, inches from the next level. Or maybe you're at a slot machine and you get 2 cherries and then a lemon. That intense feeling of being so close, it is incredibly powerful. And I'm telling you, it is not an accident. It's designed very carefully to keep you hooked.
So that feeling, it actually has a name. And it's the powerful hook that keeps us all coming back for more, even when we know we probably should have stopped ages ago. So let's break down exactly what this thing is, and more importantly, how it's working on our brains.
It's called the near-win effect. And it's a psychological trick that, was pretty much perfected in the world of gambling. But now, it is everywhere, from your social media feeds to educational apps. It preys on our brain's natural reaction to near success, convincing us that a real win is just around the corner. It makes it almost impossible not to just try one more time. But okay, what is it that makes that almost win so powerful? I mean, why does our brain light up with anticipation even when we technically lost? Well, to answer that, we've got to look at the neuroscience. And this is where we uncover the deceptive little dopamine trap that so many of our modern platforms are built on. Okay, so check this out. There's a fascinating shift that happens inside our brains. The very first time you get a reward, bam, you get a dopamine spike. That's that feel-good chemical. But once doing that thing becomes a habit, the reward itself isn't what triggers the dopamine anymore. Instead, it's the cue. It's the notification sound, the app icon. Heck, even just the thought of it that gives you the dopamine hit. And that's what motivates you to act, even if the reward never comes.
And to make things even stickier, this whole effect gets cranked up to 11 by something called variable ratio schedules. Think about loot boxes in a video game, or even just refreshing your social media feed to see if you got any new likes. You never know when the reward is coming, only that it could come at any moment. That unpredictability, it creates the most persistent, hardest to break habits you can imagine, because our brains are just wired to chase down that potential reward.
And this is where the real danger lies. While these systems are absolutely brilliant at keeping us engaged, clicking, scrolling, playing, they don't actually build any real skills. We get trapped in this loop of passive engagement that feels productive, but ultimately, it just leads to arrested development, not true mastery.
So this brings us to a really crucial distinction we have to make. On one side, you got this passive engagement, just chasing unpredictable rewards in an easy, repetitive loop that, feels productive. But on the other side, you have active mastery, the hard, focused, sometimes frustrating work of building a real skill. It's the difference between spinning your wheels and actually getting somewhere.
So if that's the trap, how in the world do we get out? How do we stop chasing those easy dopamine hits and start building real, lasting skill? Well, the answer lies in a much more powerful, though, let's be honest, much more difficult approach: the path to real mastery. The solution, or at least a huge part of it, comes from the work of psychologist Anders Ericsson, and it's called deliberate practice. Now, this is the polar opposite of mindlessly chasing dopamine. It's a highly structured, super effortful activity designed for one thing and one thing only: to get better. And here is the most crucial part. It's often not fun.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? I know it sounds intense and, well, it is, but the process can be broken down into some really clear, deliberate steps that, honestly, anyone can apply to pretty much any skill they want to build.
Okay, first, you take the skill and you break it down into its smallest possible parts, and you practice those over and over and over. Second, you are constantly pushing yourself just beyond your comfort zone. You should always feel like you're reaching for something that's just a little bit too hard. Third, you have to get immediate and consistent feedback so you know what to fix. And finally, you have to keep this effort up for the long haul.
And listen, when we say the long haul, we are not messing around. According to Ericsson's research, reaching a truly elite level of performance isn't some kind of shortcut. It typically takes more than a decade of this kind of intense, full-time, focused practice.
And you can see this play out in studies of top performers. For example, when they looked at elite violinists, they found that by the time they were 18, they had accumulated thousands more hours of deliberate practice than their peers. They treated practice like a serious job,
with intense focus and then dedicated time for recovery so they didn't burn out.
This quote from the world of medical education just nails it. The old way of learning, see one, do one, teach one, it just doesn't cut it anymore. True mastery comes from seeing a lot, practicing a lot, thinking deeply about what you're doing, and then, practicing some more.
So all of this boils down to a fundamental choice. Every single day, with every app we open and every skill we try to learn, we are faced with two very different paths, whether we realize it or not.
So I want you to ask yourself this. Are your habits built around those easy dopamine hits of passive engagement? Or are you investing your time and your energy in the hard work of active progress? The choice is always yours.
So if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this. Just putting in the hours is not enough. If you really want to achieve true mastery in anything, you have to be intentional about it. Because practice doesn't make perfect. Deliberate practice does.